All right, YouTube, once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speak Sports. Auburn, and as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. As a matter of fact, I had I don't know if this person was a subscriber or whomever this person may be, that made the comment when I was talking about Gus Malzahn and the coaching staff at Auburn. Something that gets thrown out there a lot is the whole concept of sunshine pumping. Now, basically what I feel that this person was relaying was the fact that, you know, whenever we talk positively or we talk about the chronology of Gus Malzahn's tenure at Auburn and we try to tie it together objectively, then all of a sudden we're sunshine pumping, which I can definitely respect. Because when we look at the result of Gus Malzahn's tenure at Auburn, it has been, especially from a record standpoint, grossly mediocre. And it follows the trend of the previous coaches at Auburn, because if you look at Auburn as a program, 8-5 is usually pretty much the middle ground, pretty much the general result of Auburn seasons. When you factor in the 3-9 year of 2012, and you factor in different 8-5, 7-5 seasons there, that's been the general expectations. Now, I'm not one to say that that is an acceptable expectation. At the same time, we got to look at what got Auburn to this place to begin with. You look at administration, you look at different hiring decisions, and you think about the approach to recruiting as to why Auburn is in this spot to begin with. And I think there is a very naive narrative among the Auburn fan base to believe that with the recruiting efforts combined with administration and combined with coaching approaches, that Auburn should be in a better place. Mind you, there have been opportunities within these times where Auburn should have. I look at the 2017 year. Auburn should have, had an opportunity to be the first two-loss team in the college football playoff era to make it to the college football playoff, had every opportunity going into the SEC championship. But when we look at the totality of circumstance, we look at recruiting, a lot of times we're blinded by actual recruiting rankings. Yes, Auburn has been in the top 10 recruiting-wise for quite some time, even under the Gus Malzahn era. But when you really look at the recruiting classes, you have one or two recruits that are highly ranked that actually propel the class. And when you talk about building a quality roster, which includes depth, which includes talent and things of that nature, I don't think Auburn has done its due diligence over the past few years, even under the Gus Malzahn era, to where, let's just say, for example, in the SEC championship game of 2017, you lose your starting running back, and all of a sudden you go from a potential college football playoff back to the 8-5 mentality or the 8-5 approach. Also in 2018, same thing. We don't take into consideration linebacker recruits. I think our linebackers were pretty good, but they were too slow, to be honest with you. Auburn definitely made some upgrades in the linebacker core this year. Also sandwiched that in with Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson coming back. Gave Auburn the opportunity to have an actual elite defense to where they had some versatility in how they could approach certain teams like i.e. LSU. Because I'm telling you guys, if Auburn would have had the linebacker core for the year prior, Deshaun Davis, Montavious Atkinson, I just don't think you're able to pull off the 3-1-7 defense that Auburn was able to pull off. But then on the other side of the football field, you have to look at recruiting as well. Our offensive line was a little bit abysmal, in my opinion. Did not give the opportunity for Auburn to actually have a lot of versatility in play calling. You look at the wide receivers, Anthony Schwartz, Will Hastings, Eli Stove, Seth Williams. All four of those guys, they're not bad football players, but are they elite? I think Seth Williams has the opportunity to be elite, and I think he will, especially when he has a set of receivers with him that could complement his talent or even supplement some of the areas where he lacks. I say that to say this. I think at times we discount, outside of the coaching, outside of everything else, where Auburn is as a program. And I think this 2020 recruiting class will start the beginning of the type of talent across the board. Now, you can't just have a good defense and a subpar offense and win a national championship, because most of you guys in this particular, on this channel, in the comment section, after every game, you say, like, yeah, we did have a defense that was good enough to compete for a college football playoff, but the offense wasn't there. Why wasn't the offense there? I think Gus Malzahn as a play caller had somewhat to do with it, but at the same time, we got to look at personnel. Now, going to the point of this particular video, I think the 2020 recruiting class and the result thereof gives Auburn an opportunity to kind of get ahead of the game, and I'm going to tell you why. During the early recruiting period, Auburn signed the majority of their targets. Also, gave room for Auburn to have more energy to actually look at other guys that they could possibly flip, other guys that they could pay way more attention to. Let's rewind back to 2019 early signing period. There were still guys that were targeted that were still on the docket. So instead of Auburn being able to exert energy as far as, like, say, for example, Auburn has the opportunity to flip Broderick Jones. Would Auburn have had that opportunity last year? No, because Auburn is still trying to figure out if George Pickens, one of the top recruits of the class, whether he's going to flip to Georgia or not. So all that energy that you put into George Pickens, a guy that you targeted who had actually committed, you can't really put that energy into finding other guys that could actually solidify the class. You can't do that now. You're hoping and praying on signing day that George Pickens will actually sign. But this year is a lot different. Tank Bigsby signed. You got a real solid class. And this is what that allows Auburn's coaching staff to do. One, Broderick Jones is somebody that Auburn definitely needs, but it isn't a guy that Auburn targeted. So if Auburn actually signs Broderick Jones, that's just an ace in the hole versus someone you're heavily depending on. Why is this important? Number one, Auburn now, even if you take Broderick Jones out of the mix, Auburn now can begin to start forecasting for spring training. They know who the early enrollees are going to be for the most part. They know everything. They can actually start piecing together even a depth chart prior to, or at least forecasting what the depth chart could possibly be going into spring training. So that's one of the real reasons why I like what Auburn was able to accomplish in the early signing period, because it allows a high level of proactivity. So instead of still like on the recruiting trail and all of these other things, Auburn can actually start forecasting for the 2020 football season, because the targets are there. The guys that you have coming back are there. You can start piecing together where you're going to place guys, where guys are potentially going to be successful. Like, for example, you have Zach Farrar, receiver from last year, tall guy. Where's he going to fit? You have Boobie Whitlow. You have Sean Shivers. You probably have Anthony Schwartz coming back. He's kind of on the fence. He, probably will focus more on track. We don't know that yet. But at least you have enough information to begin to start planning for what your 2020 season is going to look like. So now, signing day is actually a non-event, to where Auburn can start to look beyond signing day and start piecing together what spring football is going to be all about. And I think that's a huge deal for Auburn. And any fans that really follow recruiting and follow personnel, you can understand the purpose of this particular video, in the fact that Auburn can really, really start getting ahead of the game in preparation for spring football. Because see, now with all of these targets in place, Auburn can already go ahead and start planning. Okay, We think this guy's going to do this. We think this guy's going to do that. We can place this guy here. Oh, man, we got Kobe Hudson. Where are we going to put him at? You know what I'm saying? You can start looking at film and piecing together projection-wise where Auburn's program could possibly go in the 2020 season. Because, say, this time last year, Auburn is trying to figure out who the quarterback's going to be. Spending the whole spring. Now you already know. Bo Nix is the quarterback. You don't have the controversy between Bo Nix and Joey Gatewood now. So you have all those pieces in place. You have offensive. At least when you look at the offensive line, at worst, you'll be the same as last year. Because in my opinion, it can't get any more challenging than what last year was. And then you bring the talent in. You got some JUCOs in this particular offensive line, accompanied by the talent that you have from high school. And then if you nail a guy like Broderick Jones, then you have a possibility to really, really make some things happen here in the 2020 season. Line that up with a much more favorable schedule. What were we talking about all year? We're talking about the Oregon game. A high-anxiety game. We felt like Gus Malzahn was in a must-win situation. But this year you start the season off with Alcorn State, a FCS school who competes in the SWAC conference. Now, no disrespect to Alcorn State. They participated in the Celebration Bowl. The Celebration Bowl is actually a sort of a bowl game between the SWAC champion and the MEAC champion. So Alcorn State is a very good football team, but it's a team that Auburn should beat, hands down. So now you don't have all of that anxiety. You have time to even win the first game. That's like an additional practice game until you go to Atlanta to face a relatively talented North Carolina team. So I think Auburn is in a lot better shape, and it's all because of what they accomplished during the early signing period. So this whole Sunshine Pumper talk, I mean, I get it. I get most of the Auburn fans do not have an amicable relationship. Most of the people that I talk to, I mean, they say they don't like Gus, and that is what it is, but that's who you got. And one thing I can say about Gus Malzahn and his staff, we won't just put it all on him, and his staff have figured out a way to more effectively recruit. Not just getting a top guy like a George Pickens and then just hoping the other part of the class falls in place. You can tell based on this particular recruiting class that they are looking at building a roster, building depth, building talent, having options. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like this video, comment, look at some of the old videos, subscribe to my channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.